G'day people, this is the first Martian cookery clip. I do a lot of cooking, so I thought I'd start with one of my all-time favourites, which is a really simple thing, but no one does it, or very few people do it. Cheese rice. Like a lot of simple dishes, it's hard to get right. Easy to stuff up, hard to get right. So for one person, 3/4 of a cup. Now, one thing that not many people know, when you buy your cups, you get one that's a cup and you get one that's a half a cup. But you can't buy one that's 3/4 of a cup, even though 3/4 of a cup is a really useful measurement. So I had to make my own, which I did by putting water in a 1 cup and weighing it until it was the correct weight, and then marking the circle exactly where the water came up to, and I cut it off. Anyway, 3/4 of a cup of rice. I always use Thai jasmine rice for this, and Thai jasmine rice is my go-to rice for all general purpose. With Thai jasmine rice, you want the exact same amount of water as rice. So boiling water, same amount. This is not true for other types of rice, or not necessarily true for other types of rice, but certainly for proper Thai jasmine rice, the same amount of water as rice. You need some salt. You always need salt with rice. 1 level salt spoon. Stir it around. Put it on the stove. Now, I don't wash my rice, at least not for this dish, because when you wash it, the starch comes out. But actually, you want the starch in. Cheese rice, you want the rice to stick together pretty well. It's best when the rice sticks together, and the way to do that is keep the starch, don't wash it out. So I just stir it around. A lot of people don't know how to make rice without a rice cooker or without using the boiling technique. This is absorption technique. You just need the right amount of rice and you need the right amount of water, and you need to stir it early on. Stir it as it's coming to the boil. You stir it, don't let it stick to the bottom. I mean, it is going to stick to the bottom in the end, but it won't. Don't let it stick to the bottom at the start. And just leave it to bubble away. I don't know if you can see anything here. I don't know if you can see over the rim, but yeah, it's quite milky. Quite milky. But anyway, you just let it go, let it bubble until it gets very starchy. The idea is to get the rice started before you turn the heat down. You want the rice to have a little bit of absorption at the bottom, a little bit coated with the starch at the bottom, and it reduces the amount that it sticks to the bottom. Alright, I've turned it down to the minimum. Now this is the thing, very hard to do this with gas because you can't get the flame low enough without going out a lot of the time. But with electric, yes, you can get it very low. So you want it as low as possible. And we set it for 12 minutes. We'll come back in 12 minutes and put the cheese in. Now, the cheese, best to use 2 types of cheese is really good. You could use more than 2. That's 3. So we want 80 grams of cheese all up. So we'll start with 40 grams of cheddar. That's 40 grams. And another 40 grams of parmesan. Now you can use a bit of the rind. I like to use a bit of the rind. It's a good way to get rid of it. I mean, where else are you going to use the rind? Still a bit short. Where else are you going to use your parmesan rind? You want, you know, if you've got a good grater, I suppose, you can grate the rind up fine. That's all good. It melts well enough. I mean, it's not going to melt like cheddar, but it's alright. So I mean, you can grate the whole thing you want. I can't be bothered, so I think because it'll just melt anyway in the end. So I just cut them up into fine strips, or fine, just dice up the cheese. In the case of the cheddar, it doesn't have to be super fine. In the case of the parmesan, it does need to be fairly fine. So we'll dice it up. As I say, if you've got a good cheese grater, mechanised cheese grater, go ahead and grate it with that. If you haven't, I mean, you can try using a hand grater, but it's not going to do the job very well with the hard parmesan. It's going to be struggling, especially with the rind. The other bit's probably alright. I just found over the years, I've been making this for 40 years, more than 40 years, and the way that I make it has changed over the years. Yeah, see how fine that is? You want it reasonably fine, otherwise it won't melt properly. This dish was I first learned about this dish from my mother. And she used to make it, she made it a bit different way to me. She only used cheddar cheese, and it was random as to how much cheese went in. And she boiled the rice with a boiling technique, you know, boil it and drain it, and you drain away all the starch. Which is not the best way to cook rice. But anyway, I really liked it. She used to do it when she had nothing else to do, when she needed to make a quick meal. She'd whip up some cheese rice and we'd sit around and eat it, and she never thought it was anything special, but I used to really like it. But it depended a lot on how it went. You know, it was highly variable. One day it'd be really good, another day it would be really ordinary. And that's what'll happen to you if you make cheese rice and you don't get it right. This method will make sure you do get it right, so that every time you make it will be good. Well, just a matter of waiting now until the rice is done, so I'll come back when the rice is done. Okay, the rice is done. I've turned off the heat. Now I just drip the... See how fluffy that rice is? Pretty much perfect. Now we just scrape the cheese into the pan. Like so. Stir it around. Now you will notice, when you're stirring it around, you'll notice that there is rice stuck to the bottom. This always happens when you cook rice using the absorption technique in a pan. It will always stick to the bottom, but here's the but. it stand for 5 minutes or 7 minutes perhaps, it will loosen up and you will be able to get it off the bottom without any trouble. So I'll just set the alarm for 7 minutes and we'll come back when that time's gone. Okay, I'm back. Here's what happened to the rice after it's been sitting there for 7 minutes. You can probably tell, you should be able to see that it's all melted. Just with the latent heat, or residual heat of the rice, which is still steaming as you can see. Now just using the fork you can scrape it gently across the bottom and you will loosen up all those rice grains that stuck to the bottom. They'll just come off. Then you mix them in, mix it around good and well. As I say, this dish, you want the rice to stick together, and that's what it's doing. This is what we want. In fact, I always like my rice to stick together. Rice that doesn't stick together, what's the point of that? I don't get it. Anyway. Just mash it and scrape it off the bottom until there's nothing left on the bottom. Now it's all mashed in evenly. And then you put it on your plate. Look at that. All stuck together. Beautiful. That's what we want to see. And just leave some water in the pan for a quarter of an hour or so and you'll be able to get the cheesy stuff off the bottom of the pan without any trouble. Now look, squish this down, makes a nice cake, very good. Now you can just eat it like that, and some people probably prefer to just eat it like that. Yeah. That is good, but I discovered a secret. 1 minute in the microwave. Now you can eat it like that, and the taste is the most true to the cheese. If you eat it like that, it's true to the cheese. So if you're happy with it like that, just eat it like that. What happens when you microwave it for a minute, makes it hotter, melts a bit more, and then the cheese flavour isn't quite the same. It's not the same cheese, it's not quite as cheesy tasting, but it has another quality. It's still cheesy, but it's not the same sort of cheesy. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but in my opinion, especially if it doesn't taste exactly right straight when you put it first on the plate. If it tastes perfect like that, then just eat it like that. But sometimes it doesn't quite taste perfect. There's a little bit of something, and when you put it in the mic, that fixes it. In the mic, turn it over, let the steam out, like so. So let's have a taste of this one. I always like to make a cake, like you don't have to, but I do. It's a bit hotter. Still cheesy, but it's not. There's something about the cheese that changes when you do that. It's not quite the same. Now you can just eat it like that, and this is the best way to do it. Just eat it like that. But if you get bored, it's really simple flavour. It's just cheese and rice. There's really nothing else, a bit of salt. And to get it right, it's a great thing. It's fairly bland, yes, but That's what you want. I mean, rice is a bland flavour and cheese is fairly bland. Together, if you get it right, fantastic. But you'll always be thinking, oh, I could improve it by adding this, or I can improve it by adding that. I've tried adding everything to it, and you don't really improve it by adding anything to it. But if you have to add something to it, a bit of sweet chilli sauce. Like, you can do stuff like add Worcestershire sauce, you know, but really doesn't really improve it. And even this doesn't really improve it. It's just if you get bored and you just want to have a bit more something else in the flavour, add some sweet chilli sauce. That's it. But that's totally optional, definitely not required. So I'm going to leave half the cheese without it. All good. First clip done. Enjoy.